After the first loss against Maryland in 4 years, the Nittany Lions have their first 0-3 record since 2001. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Nittany Sanchez alongside Evan Lasek and Logan Bourandas. Tonight we will be breaking down Saturday's game against the Terrapins, what to expect for the rest of the season, as well as a look at some of James Franklin's coaching decisions. I'll start with you, Logan. What went wrong during the 35-19 loss on Saturday?
Well, basically everything that could have gone wrong just went wrong for the Nittany Lions last Saturday. Looking on the offensive side, this is not your normal Penn State offense. Sean Clifford, quarterback for Penn State, threw the ball 57 times, which he's not used to doing, especially last year when Penn State had the Lawn Boys at running back, and they just ran the ball every single chance they could. But now with Noah Cain and Journey Brown both not being on the team this year, that makes doing that a lot harder than it was, and we kind of saw Sean Clifford try to carry this offense against Maryland on Saturday. And on the defensive side, we noted that the secondary was a definite weakness. We saw that against Minnesota and against Ohio State last year. But now, especially at the end of this play, with Rakeem Jarrett, he scored on the exact same plays to get the first 2 touchdowns in that game, where he kind of shifted from the left side to the right side, cut across left on the slant route, and then he scored 2 touchdowns with one of those coming right here, and you kind of saw the end result there. And this Penn State secondary has gotten a lot worse, and it's hard to go from being 27.5-point favorites against this same Maryland team without messing up in more than one area.
Yeah, like you said all day, we made Sean throw way too much, and it was just a bummer. He's clearly shown all season that he is not that guy that can control this offense. 57 times for a quarterback who can throw it right to the defender half the time, not a really good look. Running the ball was always Penn State's strong suit. They're down to 1 running back, and Sean Clifford tries to count himself as a running back, it looks. He had 16 attempts for 27 yards, I believe. That's really bad. Those are all designed runs, and those are all James Franklin play calls. He is a one-read quarterback. We saw it all season long, where he would look at first read, maybe second read, and then just take off running, either get sacked or throw it right into double coverage. All season long, this has been happening. The run game needs to be established. James Franklin is way too aggressive with fourth down play calling, way too early in the game. First quarter, second quarter, first half in general, you should not be going for it. I know Jake Pinniger struggled, but those are chip shot field goals. You need to get points on the board. You can't fall into a hole like that, like he has this game and the other 2 games in the season.
Yeah, losing Journey Brown and Noah Cain at running back has hurt the offensive line tremendously, and their veteran offensive line has also let Penn State down as well. James Franklin decided not to pull starting quarterback Sean Clifford despite recent struggles. Clifford only made 27 passes out of 57 attempts versus Maryland. Evan, do you think it was the right decision to keep Clifford in, or should he have given Will Levis a shot?
James Franklin is loyal to a fault, to say the least, to his players. The only reason Sean Clifford is staying into this game, Jahan Dotson, makes him look like a superstar quarterback. He completed under 50% of his passes, 27 to 57, not very good. But the only other thing other than Jahan Dotson keeping him in is the fact that the other quarterbacks on the roster are not much better. So if his struggles continue, Penn State drops to 0-4, 0-5, I think it's time to start looking at different quarterbacks, see where they can go next year, the next few years. Clifford's not going to be around forever. Hopefully for the Nittany Lions, he's really struggled, and I understand why he did it, but honestly, when a quarterback struggles, you need to discipline him. James Franklin doesn't discipline his players. They keep making mistakes, they keep going out there, and nothing's ever going to come out of it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Sean Clifford definitely showed signs of struggling throughout the entire game. You had guys like Jahan Dotson, Parker Washington, and Pat Freiermuth who were wide open on some of these plays. And throughout the entire game, Sean Clifford was throwing it 5 yards past those guys who already had a huge beat on their mans. So Sean Clifford definitely, he was not on target the entire game. And with him trying to carry the entire offense by both throwing the ball and running the ball to get the Nittany Lions back in the lead, it just wasn't working out for him. And going back to your point, Evan, I do think that Coach Franklin definitely should have removed Sean Clifford from the game just because of his signs of struggling. Or you can even bring in a guy like Will Levis or even Daquan Robertson into the game just to see what you got for the future, because Sean Clifford, he's only a junior, so you don't know whether or not he's going to be on the team next year, and he's definitely not going to be on the team for the future of this team. So you can see what a guy like Levis or Robertson has. And we haven't really seen a lot of Will Levis so far this year. I think the one play he came in against Indiana, he fumbled the ball on the goal line, and ever since then, we haven't really seen Will Levis enter the game. So definitely be interesting to see Will Levis or Daquan Robertson enter the game. But overall, not a smart decision on Franklin's part.
Yeah, like you said, Clifford's been missing wide open receivers all season long. Overthrown him by 5 to 10 yards. His deep ball is beautiful, but his short accuracy really needs to improve. And I think James Franklin really needs to put his foot down and say, you cannot make these mistakes in a professional game. You can't make these mistakes in an NCAA game. It's time for you to learn how to be disciplined on the football field. And maybe that'll light a fire under him, and we could see something big for Sean Clifford.
Yeah, although Clifford has a lot to work on, not all of the struggles on offense are entirely his fault. Coach Franklin is known to be very loyal to his players, especially the starting lineup. Although Franklin hasn't had the greatest answers on why the Nittany Lions have performed so poorly, Logan, do you think Franklin can turn this team around, or has his decisions put the team in a hole?
Well, I think especially with these first 3 games, you could see Coach Franklin basically just getting outcoached throughout the entire game by the other teams. And you look specifically at the Ohio State and this Maryland game, they were 2 instances in both those games where Franklin decided to go for it early on 4th down. Both had very different occurrences. But looking at the Maryland game specifically, on the very first drive of the game, Franklin went for it on 4th down when you were inside the red zone. And it was only 7-0. It wasn't a blowout game yet. It was early in the first quarter. And not only did they not get it, not only did they not get the first down, but it was a fade route that they ended up calling, and it just wasn't a great play call whatsoever. And you could have kicked the field goal to make it 7-3. Didn't do that. Gave Maryland a ton of momentum that ended up carrying throughout the entire game. And just a lot of these running plays, a lot of read options being called, which ends up to Sean Clifford just keeping the ball 99% of the time and ended up getting 17 carries for him in that game, when you have Devin Ford, who's only getting 9 carries in that game, where he should be your top back, no question about that. And I think it's just a huge coaching thing with Franklin and Penn State, and they're going to have to just turn that around and just turn all that around for the rest of the season so they have any chance of just being somewhat competitive.
Yeah, I don't see them making it back into the top 25 at this point in the season. 0-3 in the Big Ten, that's not a really good look. So they just got to start preparing for next season. They got to get these new guys reps. They got to just keep moving pieces around and not relying on the guys that are going to be leaving next season. At this point in the season, it's a little too far gone. Like you said, James Franklin's been outcoached literally all season long. We've seen it. Sean Clifford has run the ball at more than 10 times every single game, and the first game his numbers were really good, but overtime really helped with that. They got to stop calling read options, because he's just going to keep holding the ball, and he's just going to keep making bad decisions with the football. And I think Franklin really needs to step up his play call. He cannot be so predictable. He can't be that aggressive that early on, and maybe it'll make the games more competitive by the end.
The Nittany Lions have a lot of adjustments to make as they move to Nebraska this Saturday. That's all the time we have in this edition of Penn State Sports Night. Stay tuned for more Penn State football content. For Logan Bourandas and Evan Lasek, I'm Destiny Sanchez, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.